The Crescent Lounge's neon lights cut through smoke and bodies like knives, and Callum's suppressant patch burned against his neck as he backed toward the bar. Nicholas's hand shot out, fingers closing around his forearm with bruising force. "You really thought you could ghost me, baby?" Callum's eyes swept the VIP section desperately. Then he saw him, an alpha who didn't just occupy space, he owned it. Sharp cheekbones, midnight dark eyes, power draped in tailored black. Korean features that could have graced magazine covers if they weren't currently radiating lethal intent. Without thinking, Callum tore free and committed social suicide. He sat directly on the stranger's lap. The alpha's body went predator still beneath him, every muscle locking like a loaded weapon. His companions fell silent, hands drifting toward concealed weapons. Callum felt breath ghost across his ear, felt danger coiled in the alpha's voice. "This is either incredibly brave or catastrophically stupid," he murmured, accent wrapping around English like silk over steel. "Which is it, Omega?" Nicholas stalked toward them, rage twisting his features. The stranger's hand settled on Callum's hip, possessive, grounding, claiming. "Breathe," he commanded quietly. "And tell me very quickly, should I have my men escort him out, or would you prefer I handle this personally?" Men? Who the hell had Callum just climbed onto? Callum Reed had learned early that survival meant invisibility. At 24, he'd perfected it, scent blockers that burned, oversized hoodies, avoiding eye contact. Los Angeles was a city where unmated Omegas got eaten alive. The Crescent Lounge wasn't his world. But Jin had insisted, forcing him into clothes that actually fit. 8 months of hiding is enough. Nicholas doesn't own you anymore. Except Nicholas hadn't gotten that memo. Callum had spotted him immediately, stomach dropping. He turned toward the kitchen exit. First mistake. Getting Jin to score VIP passes, second mistake. Now, perched on a stranger's lap with Nicholas approaching, Callum realized he'd made a third mistake. Potentially fatal. "Callum." Nicholas's voice cut through music. "Get over here. Now." The alpha's thumb traced a small circle against Callum's hip. His scent, cedarwood and danger, wrapped around him like armor. "Easy," the stranger breathed. "I've got you. You're safe now." "I think," the alpha said louder, voice carrying effortlessly, "the Omega is exactly where he chooses to be." Nicholas was being escorted toward the back exit before Callum could fully process what was happening. 3 of Xavier's men moved like shadows, expensive suits, dead eyes, the kind of coordinated precision that spoke of military training or something darker. One of them said something in Korean, and Nicholas's bravado crumbled into barely concealed fear. "What are they going to do to him?" Callum asked, still perched on Xavier's lap, hyper-aware of the alpha's hand steady on his hip. "Have a conversation." Xavier's thumb traced another slow circle. "Explain certain boundaries. Nothing permanent. Not yet. Not yet." The words should have terrified him. Instead, Callum felt something uncoil in his chest, something that had been wound tight for 8 months. "You should probably get off me now," Xavier said, but there was no urgency in his voice. "Unless you're trying to start rumors." Callum scrambled up, cheeks burning. Without Xavier's presence grounding him, the club's assault of noise and scent and bodies crashed back in. His suppressant patch felt inadequate, cheap. Xavier rose with predatory grace, and Callum realized the man was tall, at least 6'2", broad-shouldered, moving like violence wrapped in civility. "Come on." Xavier's hand found the small of Callum's back, steering him through the crowd. "I'm taking you home." "You don't have to." "I do, actually." Xavier's voice carried absolute certainty. "You sat on my lap in front of 40 witnesses. In our world, that means something. Whether you knew it or not." Our world. Callum's stomach twisted. What had he just walked into? The Bentley smelled like leather and money and alpha, that cedarwood smoke scent that made Callum's hindbrain purr even as his rational mind screamed warnings. Xavier drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console, relaxed in a way that suggested he was always in control. "Where do you live?" Xavier asked. Callum rattled off his address in Koreatown, a fourth-floor walk-up with water stains and a landlord who ignored repair requests. Xavier didn't comment, just adjusted their route. "So." Xavier's voice was conversational, almost gentle. "How long was Nicholas your boyfriend?" 2 years. Callum stared out the window, watching Lars' neon blur past. "Broke up 8 months ago. He doesn't accept that." "Doesn't accept it how?" "Shows up at my work. My apartment. Calls from different numbers when I block him." Callum's fingers twisted in his lap. "Got me fired from my last 2 jobs by causing scenes. Told my landlord we were having couples problems so he'd give Nicholas a key." Xavier's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "And you went to the police?" "Twice. They said it was a domestic issue. Suggested couples counseling." Bitterness leaked into Callum's voice. "Third time, the officer was Nicholas's cousin." "I see." Xavier's jaw tightened. "And tonight? Why was he so angry?" "I changed my number. Moved apartments without telling him. Tonight was supposed to be my first time out in months." Callum laughed, hollow. "Jin convinced me I deserved one normal night." "Jin?" "My friend. The one who got us into VIP." Callum glanced at Xavier. "He's probably freaking out right now." Xavier pulled out his phone one-handed, typed something, sent it. "My people will let him know you're safe." My people. Like Xavier commanded an army. Maybe he did. They pulled up to Callum's building. Peeling paint, flickering streetlight, a far cry from wherever Xavier came from. Xavier killed the engine but didn't unlock the doors. "Listen to me carefully, Omega." Xavier turned to face him fully, and in the car's dim interior, his eyes were black mirrors. "Nicholas won't bother you again. My men are explaining that right now. But this isn't over." "What do you mean?" "I mean you involved me. You sat on my lap, put yourself under my protection in front of witnesses. In the world I operate in, that's a claim. People will talk. Nicholas will talk." Xavier leaned closer, and Callum's breath caught. "That makes you a target for anyone who wants to test me." "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." Xavier's hand cupped Callum's jaw, thumb brushing his cheekbone. The touch was careful, reverent almost. "But ignorance doesn't matter. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take this." He pulled a phone from his jacket. Sleek, black, clearly expensive. "It's clean. Untraceable. My number's already programmed in." Callum took it with shaking fingers. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you were desperate enough to sit on a stranger's lap rather than go back to your ex." Xavier's voice went soft, dangerous. "Because I know what it's like when the law won't protect you." "Because," he stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his features before the mask slammed back down. "Because you're mine to protect now. Whether either of us planned it or not." He unlocked the doors. "You call me. Not the police. Not your friends. Me. Understand?" Callum nodded, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Good." Xavier's lips quirked. "Go inside, Omega. Lock your door. Sleep. Tomorrow, everything changes." Callum stumbled out onto the sidewalk, watching the Bentley pull away into Lars' neon night. His suppressant patch was definitely failing now. He could smell himself, that telltale sweetness that marked him as Omega, as prey. But for the first time in 8 months, he didn't feel afraid. He felt claimed. Callum had exactly 36 hours of peace before his world imploded again. The morning shift at Blend Cafe was supposed to be safe, a tiny independent shop in Silver Lake where the owner, Mrs. Park, paid under the table and didn't ask questions. Callum had been pulling espresso shots for 3 months, invisible behind the counter in his oversized hoodie and industrial-strength scent blockers. Then Nicholas walked through the door at 7:47 a.m. Callum's hands went numb. The portafilter clattered against the espresso machine. Every Omega instinct screamed run, but there was nowhere to go, just the counter, the espresso bar, and Nicholas's smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Baby," Nicholas said, loud enough that the morning regulars looked up from their laptops. "We need to talk." "I'm working," Callum managed, reaching for the next order ticket with shaking fingers. "You need to leave." "I'll leave when you explain who the fuck that guy was." Nicholas's voice climbed. "The one you were sitting on like some kind of..." "Sir." Mrs. Park emerged from the back, a tiny Korean woman with steel in her spine. "You're disturbing my customers. Please leave." Nicholas ignored her. He leaned over the counter, and Callum smelled the aggression rolling off him. Sour, territorial, wrong. "You think you can just replace me? Just whore yourself out to some rich asshole?" The cafe went silent. "That's enough." Mrs. Park's English was heavily accented but firm. "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead." Nicholas's laugh was ugly. "I'll just tell them about your little under-the-table operation here. I'm sure the IRS would be fascinated." Callum watched Mrs. Park's face crumble. Watched her look at him, this Omega who'd brought trouble to her doorstep, and make a calculation. "Get out," she said quietly. Not to Nicholas. To Callum. "Take your things. Don't come back." "Mrs. Park." "Now." Callum's vision blurred. He yanked off his apron, grabbed his backpack from the hook, and shoved past Nicholas toward the door. He made it 3 steps onto the sidewalk before Nicholas caught his arm. "See? This is what happens when you don't." 4 black SUVs turned the corner in perfect formation and stopped. Doors opened simultaneously. Men in dark suits emerged, Xavier's men. Callum recognized 2 from the club, and suddenly Nicholas's hand wasn't on his arm anymore. The Bentley pulled up last. Xavier stepped out like he was arriving at a movie premiere, all lethal grace in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Callum's rent. His eyes found Callum first, scanning for injuries with the kind of thoroughness that made Callum's chest tight. Then they shifted to Nicholas, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "I thought we had an understanding," Xavier said conversationally, walking toward them. "After our conversation last night." Nicholas had gone pale. I just wanted to talk." "You made him lose his job." Xavier's voice never rose, but somehow it carried absolute authority. "Over what? Jealousy? Pride?" He stopped inches from Nicholas, and Callum saw the beater actually tremble. "Let me make this very simple. You go near Callum again, you breathe in his direction, you even think his name too loudly, and I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life regretting it." "You can't just..." Xavier tilted his head. "Can't I?" One of his men said something in Korean. Xavier nodded, then walked past Nicholas into the cafe. Through the window, Callum watched him approach Mrs. Park. Watched him pull out his wallet, count out bills, a lot of bills. Watched Mrs. Park's eyes go wide, then narrow with suspicion, then widen again as Xavier kept counting. He emerged 2 minutes later. 6 months' wages, he said to Callum. With interest for the inconvenience. "I don't," Callum's throat closed up. "You can't just." "I can." "I did." Xavier's hand found his elbow, gentle but immovable, steering him toward the Bentley. "Get in the car." "No." Callum yanked away, and something like surprise flickered across Xavier's face. "I don't need saving. I don't need you to swoop in and throw money around like that fixes everything." "Doesn't it?" Xavier's expression was unreadable. "You have a job now?" "That's not the point." "Then what is the point, Omega?" Xavier stepped closer, and Callum's back hit the Bentley. "That your pride is worth more than your safety? That you'd rather struggle alone than accept help?" "Yes." The word burst out. "Because accepting help from you means..." Callum gestured helplessly at the SUVs, the men, the wreckage of his morning. "This. All of this. Whatever this is." Xavier was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, His voice was softer than Callum had ever heard it. You're right. You don't need saving. His hand came up, not quite touching Callum's face. But what you do need, what everyone needs, is a choice. The choice to say yes or no from a position of power, not desperation. He stepped back, and Callum could breathe again. I'm not asking you to be saved. I'm offering you options. A phone that reaches me. Money so you're not one missed shift from eviction. The knowledge that someone will answer when you call. Xavier's eyes were dark, fathomless. Take them or don't. But don't pretend that refusing help makes you strong. Sometimes strength is knowing when to let someone stand with you. Callum stared at him, this dangerous, beautiful alpha who'd crashed into his life like a meteor. Why? Because 2 nights ago, you sat on my lap and trusted me with your fear. Xavier's lips quirked. And I'm a man who takes his responsibilities seriously. He opened the Bentley's door. I'm driving you home. You can argue with me in the car or on the sidewalk. Your choice. Callum got in the car. The private room at Hanok smelled like charcoal and sesame oil and secrets. Xavier had chosen a place deep in Koreatown's heart, the kind of restaurant with no English menu and ajumas who knew better than to ask questions about the man in the corner booth who always reserved the back room. Callum watched Xavier's hands work the grill, precise, economical movements that spoke of years of practice. Thin slices of marinated galbi sizzled and curled, fat rendering into sweet smoke. You don't have to do this, Callum said for the 3rd time. Feed you? Xavier flipped the meat with practiced ease. Why not? Because this feels like, Callum gestured at the banchan covering every inch of table, the expensive soju, the privacy that probably cost more than his old rent. Like a date. Xavier's lips quirked. Does that bother you? Yes. No. Maybe. Callum's suppressant patch was working overtime, but he could still catch hints of Xavier's scent, cedarwood and something darker, richer. Alpha pheromones that made his mouth water for reasons that had nothing to do with the food. It complicates things, Callum settled on. Things are already complicated. Xavier plated the first pieces, set them in front of Callum. Eat. Then we'll talk. The meat melted on Callum's tongue, perfectly charred, sweet savory, better than anything he'd tasted in months. He tried not to moan. Failed. Xavier's eyes darkened. Good. Unfair, Callum muttered, reaching for more. You can't buy my cooperation with food. I'm not trying to buy anything. Xavier poured soju into both glasses. I'm trying to understand you. Why? Because you sat on my lap 3 days ago, and I still don't know why you were that desperate. Xavier raised his glass. Jianbei. Callum drank. The soju burned, smooth and dangerous. You want my tragic backstory? I want the truth. Xavier set down his glass. But first, I'll give you mine. Fair trade. The room felt smaller suddenly. More intimate. Callum nodded. I came to LA when I was 15, Xavier began, tending the grill with absent focus. My mother, an Omega, met my father in Seoul. He was American military, promised her everything. Marriage. Citizenship. A life. His jaw tightened. He got her pregnant and disappeared. Callum's chest constricted. She raised me alone. Worked 3 jobs, sent me to good schools, never complained. Never asked for help. Xavier's hands stilled. When I was 14, she got sick. Needed surgery. Didn't have insurance, didn't have savings. Called my father, the first time in years. He looked up, and his eyes were black ice. He told her she should have gotten an abortion. Xavier. She died 6 months after we arrived in LA. We were supposed to start over, find family, build something. Xavier's voice never wavered, But Callum heard the fracture underneath. Instead, I buried her in a cemetery where the headstones are too close together and spent 2 years on the streets learning what power actually means. He poured more soju. I joined a crew when I was 16. Started at the bottom, collections, security, muscle work. Turned out I was good at it. Very good. By 20, I was running operations. By 25, I was untouchable. His eyes found Callum's. I built this empire on one promise: no one in my family kneels again. Not to alphas who abandon them. Not to systems that fail them. Not to anyone. Callum's throat was tight. I'm not your family. Not yet. Xavier said it so casually, so certainly, that Callum forgot to breathe. But you could be. If you wanted. The air thickened, pheromones and possibility and something Callum was terrified to name. Your turn, Xavier said quietly. Why did you sit on my lap? Callum drank more soju for courage. I dropped out of USC 3 years ago. Sophomore year, my heat suppressants failed during finals week. Went into heat in the library. Shame burned his face. Campus security found me. Called my parents instead of medical. My father, his voice cracked. He said I was an embarrassment. That I'd wasted his money. That if I couldn't control my biology, I didn't deserve an education. Xavier's hand clenched around his chopsticks. I moved in with Nicholas 2 weeks later. He seemed safe. Promised to take care of me, protect me. Callum laughed bitterly. Took 6 months before protect became control. Before he started deciding what I wore, who I saw, when I left the apartment. Before I love you meant you're mine and you'll never leave. But you did leave. I tried. 3 times. He always found me. Always convinced me to come back. Callum met Xavier's eyes. Until I realized I'd rather risk dying than spend another day in that apartment. So I ran. Changed everything. Survived. And now I'm sitting in a Korean barbecue restaurant with a Mafia boss who's, Callum gestured helplessly. Who's confusing the hell out of me? Xavier leaned forward, and Callum's pulse skyrocketed. How am I confusing you, Omega? The title shouldn't affect him. It did. You're dangerous. You hurt people. You run a criminal empire. Callum's voice dropped. And somehow you're the safest I've felt in 3 years. That's not confusion. Xavier's hand crossed the table, fingers threading through Callum's. That's recognition. Of what? That sometimes the monster is the only thing standing between you and worse monsters. Xavier's thumb stroked across Callum's knuckles, and the touch burned. That protection doesn't have to mean possession. That choosing the villain doesn't make you weak, it makes you smart. Callum should pull away. Should remember that this alpha was everything he'd been taught to fear. Instead, he held on tighter. What are we doing, Xavier? Xavier's smile was slow, devastating. Having dinner. Getting to know each other. Pretending we both don't know exactly where this is heading. And where is it heading? Xavier brought Callum's hand to his lips, not quite kissing, just breathing against his skin. Somewhere neither of us can walk away from. If you'll let it. The galbi was burning. Neither of them cared. Xavier called at midnight. Are you awake? Callum was staring at his ceiling, replaying the weight of Xavier's hand in his, the way his lips had felt against skin. Yeah. Good. I'm outside. We're going for a drive. Now. Callum sat up. Xavier, I need you to see something. To understand what you're choosing. Xavier's voice was careful, controlled. If you're going to be part of my world, you need to know what that world looks like. No illusions. 20 minutes later, They were heading toward the LA River, civilization bleeding away into industrial darkness. The Bentley's headlights cut through empty streets, past shuttered warehouses and chain-link fences topped with razor wire. "Where are we going?" Callum asked. "To church." Xavier's smile was blade-thin. "My kind of church, anyway." The warehouse sat on the river's edge, concrete and corrugated metal, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Two of Xavier's men stood guard outside. They nodded as Xavier passed, eyes sliding over Callum with professional assessment. Inside smelled like rust and river water and fear. A man was zip-tied to a chair in the center of the space, 30s, pale, shaking. Blood trickled from his nose. Xavier's men stood in a loose circle, and Callum recognized the one from the club, the one who'd escorted Nicholas out. His name was Minute-Jun, and he looked at Xavier with something close to reverence. "Who is he?" Callum whispered. "His name is David Chen. He worked, at a community center in Koreatown." Xavier's hand found the small of Callum's back, grounding. 3 weeks ago, he embezzled $30,000 from a medical fund. Money that was supposed to pay for Mrs. Huang's cancer treatment. Callum's stomach dropped. "Mrs. Huang from the herb shop. You know her? She gave me free ginger tea when I had the flu. Wouldn't let me pay." Callum stared at David Chen. "He stole from her?" "Was. He stole from the fund 20 families contributed to." Xavier's voice was conversational, lecturing. "Mrs. Huang is 83. Widowed. That money was her only chance at treatment." David Chen was crying now. "I'm sorry, I was desperate, I had debts." "Everyone has debts." Xavier walked forward slowly, each step deliberate. "The question is whether you pay them with someone else's life." He stopped in front of Chen, pulled a gun from inside his jacket. Minute-Jun lights. The overhead fluorescence cut out. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim, red, horror movie ambience. Callum's heart hammered. This was it. This was what Xavier did, who he was underneath the expensive suits and gentle touches. This was the monster. Xavier chambered around. The sound echoed like a church bell. "Please," Chen sobbed. "Please, I'll pay it back." "You will." Xavier's voice was stone. "Every cent. With interest. You'll work 3 jobs if you have to. You'll sell everything you own. You'll donate blood, plasma, bone marrow, whatever puts money in that fund." He pressed the gun to Chen's temple. "And if you ever steal from my community again, this conversation will have a very different ending. Understood?" "Yes. Yes, I understand." Xavier stepped back. Aimed at the concrete floor. Fired. Callum flinched. The gunshot was deafening, echoing off metal and stone. Chen screamed. The bullet had struck 6 inches from his foot, close enough to spray concrete dust across his shoes. "That's your warning shot." Xavier handed the gun to Minute-Jun, pulled out a knife. "Now for the reminder." He grabbed Chen's hand, the left one, spread it flat against the chair's armrest. $30,000. Mrs. Huang's life. Your conscience. He positioned the knife over Chen's pinky finger. "1 broken bone for choosing wrong. So you remember the weight of your choices." Xavier didn't saw. Didn't drag it out. 1 precise strike with the knife's pommel, and Chen's scream went airborne. Callum's suppressant patch was failing. He could smell his own fear sweat, the adrenaline spike, but he didn't look away. Couldn't look away. Xavier cleaned the knife on a cloth Minute-Jun provided. "Get him medical attention. Make sure the money's back in the fund by Friday. If he defaults, bring him back here." "Yes, sir." Xavier turned to Callum. "Let's go." They didn't speak until they were back in the Bentley. Xavier drove with one hand, the other resting on the console like he hadn't just broken a man's finger. "You're going to ask if I'm a monster," Xavier said quietly. "No. Callum's voice was steadier than he expected. I'm going to ask if you think that was justice. Xavier glanced at him, something like respect in his eyes. What do you think? I think, Callum's hands twisted in his lap. I think the courts wouldn't have gotten the money back. Wouldn't have made him understand what he took. Would have given him probation and a fine he'd never pay. And I think you terrified him more than any judge could. Made it real. Made him see Mrs. Huang as a person, not just a number. Callum's throat was tight. I think you gave him a chance the legal system wouldn't have. One broken bone instead of what he deserved, Xavier finished. Which was? Callum thought of Mrs. Huang's kind eyes. The free ginger tea. $30,000 that meant life or death. More than you gave him. Xavier's hand found Callum's thigh, squeezed gently. Is justice only real when it comes from a courtroom, Omega? Callum stared out at La's midnight sprawl. Thought about Nicholas. About police who wouldn't help. About systems that protected the wrong people. I don't know, he admitted. But I know the courtroom version wouldn't have saved Mrs. Huang. No. Xavier's voice was soft, almost proud. It wouldn't have. They drove in silence, and Callum realized with crystalline clarity that he'd just crossed a line. Witnessed violence. Condoned it. Maybe even approved of it. And he didn't feel guilty. He felt safe. Callum knew something was wrong the moment he reached his apartment door. It was ajar, just an inch, but enough. The lock was splintered, wood cracked around the deadbolt. His hands shook as he pushed it open. The apartment had been ransacked. Drawers pulled out, clothes scattered, his mattress flipped. Someone had gone through everything, searching or destroying or both. On his pillow sat a single note in Nicholas's handwriting. We need to talk. Stop hiding. Callum's phone was in his hand before conscious thought. Not 911. Not Jin. The burner Xavier had given him. Xavier answered on the first ring. What's wrong? He broke in. Nicholas broke into my apartment. Are you inside? Xavier's voice went sharp, commanding. Yes, but his not. Get out. Now. Go to the lobby. I'm 10 minutes away. Xavier made it in 7. The penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased La's glittering sprawl like a kingdom laid out for inspection. The interior was minimalist, clean lines, dark wood, Korean art that probably cost more than Callum's entire life. Black and white photography, celadon pottery, a calligraphy scroll Callum couldn't read. Guest room is there. Xavier pointed down a hallway. Master suite is there. Bathroom has everything you need. He set down Callum's hastily packed duffel, the only belongings he'd salvaged. You're staying here. No arguments. Xavier. He broke into your home, Callum. Xavier's control was fracturing at the edges. Violated your space. Left a threat. You think I'm letting you go back there? I can't just move into your penthouse. Why not? Xavier stepped closer, and Callum's back hit the window. Give me one good reason. Because it meant dependence. Debt. Because every time Xavier gave him something, Callum felt the noose of obligation tighten. Because being here, in Xavier's space, surrounded by his scent. Because this feels like giving up, Callum whispered. Xavier's expression softened. Or it feels like accepting that you deserve to be safe. That needing help doesn't make you weak. His hand came up, cupping Callum's face. Stay. Please. Callum nodded, not trusting his voice. Good. Xavier's thumb brushed his cheekbone. Shower. Eat. Rest. We'll deal with everything else tomorrow. The bathroom was obscene. Rainfall shower, heated floors, toiletries that smelled like Xavier's cedarwood scent. Callum stood under water hot enough to scald, washing away the violation of Nicholas's hands on his things, his presence in Callum's space. When he emerged, towel wrapped around his waist, he realized he'd forgotten to grab clothes from his duffel. The bedroom felt too far, too exposed. Xavier's closet was right there. The shirt was soft, expensive, charcoal gray, probably cost more than Callum's weekly grocery budget. It hung to mid-thigh, sleeves past his fingertips. And it smelled like Xavier, cedarwood and smoke and alpha. Callum breathed it in and felt something loosen in his chest. Something that had been wound tight for years. He found Xavier on the balcony, nursing whiskey and staring at the city lights. The alpha turned when the door opened, and his eyes went dark, molten. "That's my shirt," Xavier said, voice rough. "I forgot to grab clothes. I can change." "Don't." Xavier set down his glass with careful precision. "Don't change." Callum walked to the railing, hyper-aware of Xavier's gaze tracking him. The city spread below, 42 stories of separation from reality. Up here, it was just them and the night and the truth neither wanted to speak. "I can smell you," Xavier said quietly. "Your suppressants are failing." "I know." Callum's fingers tightened on the railing. "I'll get new ones tomorrow." "I don't want you to." Callum turned. Xavier was closer now, close enough that Callum could see the war in his eyes, control versus desire. "Why not?" "Because your scent," Xavier's jaw clenched. "Sweet citrus and rain. It's driving me insane. Has been since the moment you sat on my lap." He stepped closer. "And I'm tired of pretending I don't want to drown in it." Callum's breath caught. "Xavier. Tell me you don't feel this." Xavier's hand found his waist, fingertips burning through the thin shirt. "Tell me you don't want this just as badly as I do." "I can't." The admission broke free. "I can't tell you that because it would be a lie." Xavier's control shattered like glass. He crowded Callum against the railing, one hand spanning his waist, the other cupping his jaw. "I'm going to kiss you now," he breathed against Callum's lips. "And if you want me to stop, if you want any of this to stop, you tell me. Understand?" Callum's hands fisted in Xavier's shirt, pulling him closer. "I understand." "Good. Now tell me to stop." "No." Xavier's mouth crashed against his, demanding, possessive, everything Callum had been craving since the club. He tasted like whiskey and want, kissed like he was claiming territory, marking ownership. Callum opened for him, gasping when Xavier's tongue swept inside, when sharp teeth caught his bottom lip. This wasn't soft. Wasn't gentle. It was 3 weeks of tension combusting, alpha and omega chemistry igniting like wildfire. Xavier's hand slid into Callum's damp hair, angling his head for better access. His other hand gripped Callum's hip hard enough to bruise. "Fuck," he growled against Callum's mouth. "You taste." Callum didn't let him finish. He kissed back just as fiercely, nails digging into Xavier's shoulders, letting himself take what he wanted for the first time in years. No fear. No shame. Just hunger. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Xavier pressed his forehead to Callum's. "Stay," he whispered. "Not just tonight. Stay with me." Callum's suppressant patch was definitely failing. He could feel the heat building, the pull between them intensifying. "This is crazy." "Maybe." Xavier's lips found the sensitive spot below his ear. "But tell me you don't want it anyway." Callum tilted his head, giving him access, surrendering. "I want it. God help me, I want all of it." Xavier's smile against his throat was pure satisfaction. "Then you'll have it, Omega. You'll have everything." Callum had been living in Xavier's penthouse for 5 days when Jin forwarded him the screenshots. "Your old number," Jin's message read. "The one you abandoned. Nicholas has been texting it non-stop. Thought you should know." Callum's stomach dropped as he scrolled through them. 17 messages, sent over 3 days, each one progressively unhinged. "I know you're with him. You think money makes him better than me? I took care of you when no one else wanted you. Ungrateful Omega slut. I'll find you. I'll make you remember who you belong to. That alpha can't protect you forever. The messages devolved from there, threats, obscenities, promises of violence that made Callum's hands shake. The final one, sent at 3 a.m., was simple: you were mine first. You'll be mine last. Xavier found him on the balcony 20 minutes later, gripping the railing hard enough to hurt. What's wrong? Xavier's hand settled on his lower back, warm and grounding. Callum handed him the phone wordlessly. Xavier's expression went glacial as he read. The muscle in his jaw ticked, once, twice. When he looked up, his eyes were black mirrors, all predator. How long ago was the last message? 4 hours. Good. Xavier pulled out his own phone, typed something in rapid Korean. Go inside, Omega. Have some tea. Read. Distract yourself. What are you going to do? Xavier's smile was winter. Have a conversation. 17 of them, actually. Callum didn't sleep. He tried, curled up in Xavier's bed because his own felt too empty, too cold. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Nicholas's face, heard his voice. You were mine first. At 6 a.m., Xavier slipped into the bedroom. His clothes were immaculate, not a hair out of place, but Callum could smell the night on him, sweat and adrenaline and something copper-sharp. Is he dead? Callum asked quietly. No. Xavier sat on the bed's edge, close enough to touch. Though he might wish he were. What did you do? Exactly what needed to be done. Xavier's hand found Callum's ankle through the blanket, thumb stroking small circles. He sent you 17 messages. Each one a threat, a violation, a reminder that he thought he still owned you. His eyes met Callum's. So I broke 17 bones. One for each text. Very precise. Very surgical. He'll heal. Eventually. Callum should feel horrified. Should feel sick. Should feel something other than the relief flooding his system like a drug. Where is he now? County hospital. Stabilized. Sedated. The police will ask questions, but he won't answer them. Because my men made it very clear what happens if he talks. Xavier's hand slid up to Callum's calf. He'll never touch you again. Never text you, call you, think about you. I made sure he understands that you're under my protection now. Your protection. Callum's voice was hollow. Is that what this is? What else would you call it? Possession. The word hung between them, sharp and honest. Xavier's expression didn't change. Is there a difference? When it comes to keeping you safe. Callum sat up, and they were close now, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in Xavier's dark eyes, the precise line of his jaw, the mouth that had kissed him senseless 3 nights ago. Show me, Callum whispered. Xavier pulled out his phone, brought up photos that made Callum's breath catch. Nicholas in a hospital bed, face swollen, casts on both arms, one leg elevated. The medical report listed the damage with clinical precision: bilateral radius fractures, compound tibia fracture, metacarpal fractures X4, rib fractures X6, nasal fracture, orbital fracture, 17 bones. Exactly 17. Callum stared at the photos, waiting for horror to hit. For guilt. For the moral compass that should be spinning wildly, pointing to wrong. Instead, he felt light. Untethered. Free. Tell me I'm a monster, Xavier said quietly, watching Callum's face. Tell me this crosses a line. That I went too far. That you're horrified. Callum looked up from the phone. Met those deadly eyes. You want me to lie to you? I want you to be honest. Then here's the truth. Callum set the phone aside, hands finding Xavier's face, thumbs tracing his sharp cheekbones. I should be horrified. Should be running. Should be calling the police and testifying against you. His voice dropped. But all I feel is relief. Because for the first time in 3 years, I know Nicholas can't hurt me. Can't find me. Can't drag me back. Xavier's hands gripped his waist. Callum. You broke 17 bones to match 17 texts. That's not random violence, Xavier. That's precision. Justice. A message. Callum leaned forward until their foreheads touched. You're absolutely a monster. But you're my monster. The one who protects me when the law won't. The one who makes me feel safe in a world that's treated me like prey. You understand what you're saying? Xavier's voice was rough, strained. What you're accepting. I understand that every system meant to protect me failed. My family. The police. Society. Callum's fingers slid into Xavier's hair. But you didn't fail. You saw what Nicholas was and you ended it. Permanently. Xavier pulled him into his lap, and Callum went willingly, straddling him, letting himself be held by this dangerous man who'd become his safest place. I need you to be sure, Xavier breathed against his throat. Because once you cross this line with me, there's no going back. You'll be mine. Completely. Callum tilted his head, giving Xavier access to his neck, to his scent gland. Then make me yours. No more half measures. No more pretending. Xavier's teeth grazed his throat, and Callum's suppressant patch felt like paper against the tide of his biology. You're choosing this. Choosing me. I chose you the moment I sat on your lap. Callum's hands fisted in Xavier's shirt. Everything since then has just been me catching up to that truth. Xavier's laugh was dark, possessive. My Omega. My brave, reckless, perfect Omega. Yours, Callum agreed, and felt something lock into place. Something inevitable and terrifying and absolutely right. Outside, LA woke to another day. Inside, two broken people found their fit in each other's damage. They came for Callum at 3 a.m. Not Xavier's men, federal agents. Two of them, flashing badges at the penthouse's night security, riding the elevator up with the building manager's master key. Callum woke to pounding on the door and Xavier already moving, pulling on pants, eyes calculating escape routes. FBI. We have a warrant for questioning Callum Reed. Xavier's jaw clenched. He's not under arrest. Not yet. We just want to talk. Callum met Xavier's eyes across the bedroom. Saw the war there, the urge to fight, to protect, versus the knowledge that fighting the FBI would only make things worse. It's okay, Callum said quietly. I'll go. Like hell. Xavier. Callum touched his arm. If I don't, they'll just come back with an arrest warrant. You know that. Xavier's hands fisted at his sides. I'm calling my lawyer. Don't say anything until he gets there. Sir, Mr. Reed isn't under arrest. He's free to decline representation. He's not declining shit. Xavier's voice could have cut glass. You want to talk to him, you wait for his lawyer. The federal building downtown was all fluorescent lights and institutional beige. They put Callum in an interview room, metal table, 3 chairs, a mirror that was obviously one-way glass. He'd seen enough cop shows to know the setup. The lawyer Xavier sent, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, arrived within 20 minutes. She sat beside Callum, briefcase open, recording device ready. Don't answer anything you're not comfortable with, she murmured. And if I touch your arm, stop talking immediately. Then Agent Rivera walked in. She was mid-40s, black, with kind eyes that probably put a lot of people at ease. She carried a manila folder thick with documents and set it down with deliberate care. Mr. Reed. Thank you for coming in. She sat across from him, ignoring Patricia entirely. I'm Special Agent Rivera, FBI Organized Crime Task Force. I've been investigating Xavier Montague for 3 years. Callum said nothing. Rivera opened the folder. Money laundering. Racketeering. Aggravated assault. Witness intimidation. Extortion. She laid out photos, Xavier leaving buildings, meeting with known criminals, surveillance shots from dozens of angles. We have 17 different charges ready to file. We're just waiting for the right moment. Is there a question here, Agent Rivera? Patricia's voice was ice. I'm getting there. Rivera pulled out more photos, these ones of Callum. Leaving Xavier's building. Getting into the Bentley. At the Korean restaurant. You've been living with Mr. Montague for 2 weeks now. Sharing his bed. His life. Her eyes were gentle, sympathetic. I'm guessing he told you he's protecting you? Callum's throat tightened. From your ex-boyfriend, Nicholas Carr. Who's currently in county hospital with 17 broken bones. Rivera slid across a medical report. Broken in a pattern that matches 17 text messages he sent to your old number. That's not coincidence, Mr. Reed. That's calculation. That's a crime boss sending a message. My client isn't responsible for. I know he's not responsible. Rivera leaned forward. But he's complicit. And more than that, he's trapped. Mr. Reed, you seem like a smart young man. So let me be very clear about what Xavier Montague does. She pulled out more files. Crime scene photos. Blood. Bodies. Financial records showing money flowing through shell corporations. Testimony transcripts from witnesses too terrified to use their real names. He's a predator, Rivera said quietly. He finds vulnerable people, people in desperate situations, and he offers them protection. Safety. A way out. And in return, he owns them. Completely. Callum's hands clenched under the table. He's convinced you that you need him. That the system failed you, and maybe it did. But his solution isn't protection, Mr. Reed. It's possession. You're not his partner. You're his kept omega. The words hit like a slap. Every insecurity Callum had battled, about being weak, dependent, unable to stand alone, crystallized in that phrase. Kept omega. Here's what I'm offering. Rivera slid across a new folder. Witness protection. Full relocation. New identity. Financial support while you finish your degree. A chance to start over somewhere Xavier Montague's reach doesn't extend. Her voice softened. A chance to prove you're more than what has made you. Agent Rivera, Patricia started. I'm talking to Mr. Reed. Rivera's eyes never left Callum's face. You testified against Nicholas 3 times. The system failed you. I'm not denying that. But this? This isn't the answer. Xavier Montague is a violent criminal who will eventually get you killed or arrested. And when that happens, when the FBI finally brings him down, everyone connected to him falls too. She tapped the witness protection folder. This is your exit. Your freedom. The life you should have had before desperation made you sit on a mobster's lap. Callum stared at the folder. At the promise of safety that didn't come with blood and broken bones. At the chance to be someone other than Xavier's Omega. Think about it, Rivera said gently. You have 48 hours. After that, we move forward with or without your cooperation. And I promise you, Mr. Reed, being Xavier Montague's lover won't protect you from a federal investigation. She stood, leaving the folders on the table like landmines. Your client is free to go, Miss Chen. But I hope he makes the right choice. For his own sake. Patricia drove Callum back to the penthouse in silence. Xavier was pacing when they arrived, still in the clothes he'd thrown on hours ago. What did they want? Callum set the witness protection folder on the counter. To save me. From you. Xavier stared at it like it might explode. And I have 48 hours to decide if I want to be saved. The Peninsula Hotel ballroom glittered like a jewelry box, crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, Lars elite in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Xavier had called in every favor, leveraged every connection to secure his invitation to the Children's Hospital Foundation Gala. This was where legitimate money mingled, where criminals became philanthropists, where empires were whitewashed with charity donations. Callum stood at the edge of the crowd in a midnight blue suit Xavier had bought him, feeling like an imposter. Around him, tech moguls and entertainment executives sipped champagne and discussed stock portfolios. Xavier worked the room with practiced ease, shaking hands with a real estate developer, laughing at some venture capitalist joke, playing the part of respectable businessman so perfectly that Callum almost believed it. Almost. Mr. Reed. Callum turned. Agent Rivera stood beside him in a simple black dress, champagne flute in hand, looking like any other guest. Except her eyes were all predator. Agent Rivera. Callum kept his voice neutral. Didn't realize the FBI attended charity galas. We're everywhere, Mr. Reed. Especially when known criminals are trying to buy legitimacy. She nodded toward Xavier. He's good at this, isn't he? Playing the gentleman. Making people forget what he really is. Is there something you want? Rivera reached into her clutch, pulled out something small. A wire. 48 hours are almost up. This is your last chance. Callum stared at the device. You want me to wear that? Here. His meeting with the Nakamura Group tonight. Japanese investors looking to partner on a downtown development. We need proof that their funding is coming from his criminal operations. Rivera's voice was urgent, low. Help us, and I promise you walk away clean. Witness protection. Freedom. A future that isn't measured in body counts. Across the ballroom, Xavier laughed at something a woman in diamonds said. But his eyes found Callum's over the crowd, a question in them. You okay? I can't, Callum said. Can't or won't. Rivera pressed closer. He's got you convinced you're choosing this. That you have agency. But look at yourself, Mr. Reed. Designer suit you didn't buy. Living in a penthouse you couldn't afford. Attending galas you'd never get invited to on your own. Her voice turned sharp. You're an accessory. A pretty omega on his arm to make him look domestic. Harmless. The words found their target. Every insecurity Callum had wrestled with, about being dependent, owned, kept. You don't know anything about us, Callum said quietly. I know he's using you. I know that when we bring him down, and we will, you'll be collateral damage unless you take this wire and prove you're more than his property. Callum looked at the wire. Then at Xavier. Then back at Rivera. No. Mr. Reed. I said no. Callum pushed the wire back toward her. You want to know what I am? I'm exactly where I choose to be. And I'm no one's property. He walked away before she could respond, cutting through the crowd with singular purpose. Xavier saw him coming, excused himself from his conversation, met him halfway. Callum? What's wrong? Callum didn't answer. He took Xavier's hand, laced their fingers together in front of everyone. The ballroom didn't stop, but conversations paused. Heads turned. Cameras flashed. This was LA society, and gossip was currency. Xavier Montague, the mysterious Korean-American developer with rumored underworld connections, holding hands with a young Omega in public. Claiming him in public. Omega, Xavier murmured, confused but not pulling away. What are you doing? Callum turned back to where Rivera stood at the ballroom's edge, watching. He met her eyes across the crowd and said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, I'm exactly where I choose to be. And I'm no one's kept anything. Rivera's expression hardened. She set down her champagne and walked toward them, and Callum felt Xavier tense. Making your choice public, Mr. Reed? Rivera stopped 3 feet away, voice low but cutting. Making it harder to claim coercion later? I'm making it clear, Callum said. So there's no misunderstanding. I'm with Xavier. By choice. Fully informed. Completely willing. Even knowing what he is. Especially knowing what he is. Xavier's hand tightened on his, and Callum felt the question in the pressure. Are you sure? Do you understand what you're burning right now? Callum leaned into him, into Xavier's solid warmth, his cedarwood scent, the dangerous safety he represented. Let everyone see. Let them gossip. Let the FBI note it in their files. Never been more certain, Callum said, and he was talking to Xavier now, not Rivera. About anything. Xavier's other hand came up, cupping Callum's face right there in the middle of the Peninsula Ballroom with Lars Elite watching. You know there's no taking this back. After tonight, you're mine in every way that matters. Publicly. Legally, once I arrange it. Permanently. Good. Xavier's smile was slow, devastating, absolutely possessive. He pulled Callum closer, and Callum went, letting himself be held by this monster who'd chosen to protect him. Agent Rivera, Xavier said without looking at her. I believe you're no longer welcome at this table. Or in our lives. This isn't over, Montague. Yes, Xavier said softly, his lips brushing Callum's temple. It is. Rivera left, and the ballroom's conversations resumed like a wave. Xavier kept Callum close, one hand on his waist, the other still laced with his fingers. You just chose me over the FBI, Xavier murmured. Over safety. Over the easy path. I chose myself, Callum corrected. And the life I actually want. You just happen to be the center of it. Xavier's laugh was genuine, warm. My brave Omega. My absolutely insane, fearless Omega. Yours, Callum agreed, and felt the last piece of doubt dissolve. Completely yours. The cameras kept flashing, capturing the moment Xavier Montague claimed his Omega in front of everyone who mattered. Tomorrow, the photos would circulate. The FBI would note Callum's public declaration. There would be no going back. Callum had never felt freer in his life. The rooftop garden was Xavier's secret, 43 stories above downtown LA, a hidden oasis of night-blooming jasmine and Korean maples, bamboo fountains and stone pathways that wound between carefully manicured greenery. The city sprawled below like a constellation of broken stars, and the air smelled like possibility. Callum stood at the railing, Xavier's jacket draped over his shoulders against the November chill. They'd been together 6 months now, 6 months of learning each other's edges, 6 months of Callum living in the penthouse that had stopped feeling like Xavier's space and started feeling like theirs. 6 months since the gala. Since Callum had chosen publicly, irrevocably. Close your eyes, Xavier said behind him. Why? Because I'm asking. And because you trust me. Callum did. It was terrifying how much he trusted this man, this monster who'd become his safe harbor. He felt Xavier move closer, felt something being placed in his hands. Okay. Open. 2 items sat in his palms. The first was an envelope, heavy cardstock, embossed seal. Callum's hands shook as he opened it. University of Southern California Office of Admissions. Dear Mr. Reed, we are pleased to inform you. You applied to college? Callum's voice cracked. I had your transcript sent over. Wrote a recommendation letter under a fake name, probably illegal, definitely unethical. Xavier's hand settled on his waist. Your tuition is paid. Full ride. You start in January if you want. Xavier, this is, Callum couldn't finish. Couldn't breathe around the magnitude of what this meant. Agency. Choice. The future he'd thought he'd lost forever. You told me you dropped out because your suppressants failed. Because your family abandoned you. Because you had no choice. Xavier turned him around, and his eyes were molten in the low light. I'm giving you the choice back. Take it or don't. But know that you could walk away tomorrow with a degree and a future, and I'd support that decision. You'd let me go. I'd hate it. Xavier's thumb brushed his cheekbone. But I'd do it. Because what I want, what I've always wanted, is for you to choose me not because you're desperate, but because you genuinely want this life. With me. Callum looked at the second item in his hand, a ring. Platinum, simple, elegant. Inside, engraved in Korean characters Callum had learned to read. My Omega. My choice. I want you as my equal, Xavier said quietly. My partner. My mate. Not because you need protection, but because I need you. Because you make me want to be better than what I am. Because when I look at you, I see my future, and it's the first time I've wanted a future that isn't built on blood and power. Callum's eyes burned. You're asking me to mate with you. I'm asking you to marry me. The mating, Xavier's hand found his neck, fingers tracing the scent gland there. That's only if you want it. If you want the permanence. The bond that can't be broken. It's not legal, Callum whispered. Omega Alpha marriages aren't recognized in California. I don't care about legal. Xavier pulled him closer. I care about you. About us. About building something that's ours. His voice dropped. So what do you say, Omega? Will you let me keep you? Not as property. As a partner. Callum looked at the acceptance letter. The ring. The man who'd broken 17 bones to protect him, who'd given him safety and choice in equal measure, who'd never once treated his biology as weakness. Yes, he breathed. To all of it. College. Marriage. The bond. Everything. Xavier's kiss was gentle this time, reverent, like he was sealing a promise. When he pulled back, his eyes had gone alpha dark, pupils blown wide. The bite, Xavier said carefully. It has to be during. I know. Callum tilted his head, exposing his throat. I want it. I want everyone to see that I'm yours. That I chose this. Xavier groaned. You're killing me. Then finish it. Callum's fingers found Xavier's belt. Make me yours. Permanently. 5 years later. The Montague Foundation headquarters occupied 3 floors of downtown real estate. Legitimate, licensed, profitable. Xavier had spent years transitioning his empire, leveraging connections for legal partnerships, turning blood money into clean investments. Security consulting. Property development. Import-export with actual paperwork. Agent Rivera had retired 2 years ago, her investigation closed with insufficient evidence. Nicholas had moved to Portland and hadn't contacted Callum in 58 months. The FBI's organized crime task force had moved on to easier targets. Callum adjusted his tie in the bathroom mirror, Armani, charcoal gray, paired with a waistcoat that Xavier had picked out that morning. The silver scar on his neck was visible above his collar, Xavier's mating bite, healed but permanent. He wore it like a badge of honor. Ready? Xavier appeared in the doorway, devastating in black, hair styled back, every inch the legitimate businessman he'd become. Nervous, Callum admitted. You've given a dozen presentations. Run 3 restaurants. Negotiated contracts with suppliers who tried to cheat you. Xavier kissed his temple. You've got this. The Omega Rights Coalition fundraiser was packed. Politicians, activists, business leaders. Callum had been asked to speak about Omega entrepreneurship, about building careers despite systemic barriers. About agency and choice. He took the podium at 8 p.m., and the room went quiet. 5 years ago, Callum began, I was a college dropout working under the table at a cafe, convinced I had no future. No options. No power. He touched his neck, the scar. Today, I hold an MBA from USC. I manage a restaurant group that employs 43 people, 31 of them Omegas who needed a second chance. He found Xavier in the crowd, standing at the back, arms crossed, smile playing at his lips. I was told that accepting help made me weak. That needing protection meant surrendering agency. That an Omega couldn't be both partnered and powerful. Callum's voice strengthened. But I learned something important. Strength isn't isolation. It's knowing when to accept support. When to build alliances. When to choose the people who see your worth and help you build on it. The audience leaned forward, listening. I'm not going to pretend my path was conventional. My partner, he gestured to Xavier, is not conventional either. But he gave me something the system never did. He gave me choices. Education. Opportunities. The foundation to build my own empire. Xavier's smile widened, pride naked on his face. So to every Omega in this room who's been told they're too weak, too emotional, too biological to lead, I see you. I was you. And I'm here to tell you that your biology doesn't define your ceiling. Your choices do. Your determination does. And the partners you choose, the ones who lift you up instead of holding you back, they do. The applause was thunderous. Callum stepped down from the podium, and Xavier met him halfway, pulling him into a kiss that had cameras flashing and guests murmuring appreciatively. That's my Omega, Xavier murmured against his lips, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. The one who sat on my lap 5 years ago and changed everything. The one who chose the monster and made him want to be better. Our monster, Callum corrected, taking his hand. The one I built an empire with. They walked out together, equal partners, mated pair, proof that sometimes the villain of someone else's story is the hero of yours. And somewhere in La's neon sprawl, the Crescent Lounge still glittered, still pulsed with music and danger. But Callum would never need to walk through those doors again. He'd found his way home.